What is the mandate of the Furniture and Fitting Skill Council? And particularly, which industries and professions come within its ambit?
To answer your question, the sectors under FFSC's ambit are Indian interiors, furniture, and allied industry. In layman terms, if I were to say, any job roles that are arising in the whole value chain, from design till delivery, and even including management, falls under FFSC. The key mandate that has been, because we are under the aegis of Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, MSDE, is to build a robust, sustainable skill ecosystem for interiors, furniture, and allied sector. And this essentially is because we want to address the challenge of skilled workforce availability. Now, if I break down in terms of the key mandates that are there, first of all, it is about creating awareness amongst the industry, because being an informal sector, it is largely fragmented. So formalizing the subsectors, putting it together as an industry, understanding what is the skill gap, creating national occupation standards for different job roles. An example to give would be like we have, code of conduct for how a doctor would perform or a lawyer would perform. Similarly, what all different job roles would pertain to having a national code of conduct for that as well. Developing job role specific training programs, content, guidelines, creating awareness amongst the academia and learners, because largely our sector is also not really, the job opportunities are not really are much popular or aspirational amongst the academia or learners as well. Then along with that, facilitating with the learning management system, building center of excellence, which can actually set as example, affiliating and accrediting different training providers or training partners who want to join in the particular program. Then capacity building in terms of the right subject matter experts, right trainers, right assessors who are across the spectrum, pan-India, even collaborating with, to have international mobility with international players. So somebody who gets a certificate here also gets a chance to move outside India if they want to work there, and they have kind of a bridge there. Facilitating various training programs that can be implemented, which are either government run or probably private institutions want to do it themselves. Creating collaboration-based programs. Assessment and certification. A very simple way to put it would be like, a school certificate of a CBSE is validated. Like that, a certification issued by FFSC would be validated, and across the industry, it will have that kind of a recognition. And eventually, basically, bridging that gap of demand and supply through apprenticeship and placement. And because this is like many other unorganized sectors, this is less aspiration sector. An important aspect would be also to highlight the opportunities in this sector, the career opportunities in the sector, and create aspirational value for the sector.
You mentioned centers of excellence.
There aren't enough, or let me talk about not just enough, there aren't good institutes wherein the training can happen for specific to our industry. For example, let's say you need somebody who's a machine operator, a beam saw machine operator, or CNC machine operator. Now, there are no institutes in the country wherein they are specifically teaching something about our industry or understanding of how a furniture production line works. So those nuances which are there, R&D on those kind of nuances, what new technological developments are coming, how a person would get trained on those things, all these aspects which are there, they form a part of center of excellence. And a center of excellence would be that kind of a place wherein capacity building in terms of training of trainers can happen, new R&D can happen, new programs can be developed, the right kind of information that is required for a particular job, that can be imparted. And essentially, these would come from people who have experience of or who have knowledge or skill set on these kind of profiles. So I'm glad to share that we have developed a few center of excellence in collaboration with IWST and Hetikpoda Woodworking Institute, and we are in the process of developing FFSC's own center of excellence in collaboration with NSTI, National Skills Training Institute, and our industry partners, KPL and HUMAC in Bangalore and in Hyderabad. And these would kind of be a model institute which would help in development of other training centers across the country. So we are trying to create this as a hub and spoke approach, and have a center of excellence as an example for the rest of the players who want to get into opening the training centers across the country.
There has been talk of a name change for the Furniture and Fitting Skill Council. What is that all about?
See, essentially, when I say what all is the scope of Furniture and Fitting Skill Council, it includes interiors, which is the first starting point. Then there is furniture, and there are allied sectors like wood, laminates, plywood, etc., etc. Now, most of the time during our interaction with industry partners, we have seen that they have a misconception that we are only restricted to furniture. While interiors is a big segment, in one way, I would say the interiors is the employer of rest everything that we do as a furniture industry or a furniture sector for that matter. So having interiors presented right in the name is very important, and also formalization of interior designing as a trade, as a occupation in the country is very important. So we have code of conducts and proper definition for architecture in the country, but we don't have something like that for interior designing, and that is it is high time that that gets due importance. It is also an aspirational trade. It has come up really well in the last 10 to 15 years. There are institutes on interior designing. However, there is no central code of conduct for interior designers across the country. Like there is for architecture, or there is for law, there is for medicine. So something like that is very important. And given the kind of stature that we have as a sector skill council and as an awarding body, it is right to say that there should be proper representation, and that's what we have been trying to work on. To have inclusion of the name interiors as well, and rename the council appropriately.
So FFSC is a recognized awarding body by the National Council for Vocational Education and Training, NCVET, and it's authorized to develop qualifications for the interiors, furniture, and allied sectors. So what does this mean? Qualifications, authorized awarding body, what does all this mean?
Let's understand first of all what is NCVT. Because if you are seeing that they have awarded us the status of awarding body, that means that they have some power. So what are they? Who are they, and what is their power, and what role are they playing in the ecosystem? NCVT is basically notified by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship in December 2018 as an overarching skills regulator. And their role is to integrate the fragmented regulatory system for vocational education training, infuse quality assurance across the different vocational education and training programs, leading into better outcomes. That's the kind of a core statement of what they are doing. But how are they doing it? That's more important. So they regulate the functioning of all the entities that are involved into education, vocational education primarily, training, whether it is long-term, short-term. They help into, or they kind of facilitate into the development and establishment of the standards for minimum functioning of all these bodies. Now, what all bodies are there that they actually recognize and regulate? This includes awarding bodies. This includes assessment agencies. This also includes skill-related information providers. So what do these bodies do? Assessment agency, the name is very simple and clear. So you understand that anybody who's done a training is basically going to be assessed. So that's the assessment agency. Now let's come to the part of who has created this program. Why is this program important for them? Who is capable of enough to create those programs? Now, these people who are there, they are called as the awarding bodies. So awarding bodies are specific to different sectors or a group of subsectors put together. So like that, FFSC is an awarding body for interiors, furniture, and allied sector. That means that if we have to develop the right kind of training programs, the right kind of job roles, identification of the right kind of training job roles, the right kind of occupation standards for those job roles, somebody has to give us power and authorization that, why only you would do it. So that is what it means, that when NCVT is awarded you as a status of awarding body. And developing of qualifications means that, I'll take a very simple example here. Let's say we are talking about a job role which is of an assistant carpenter. Now, in the hierarchy of the events, there might be a helper below assistant carpenter, there might be a carpenter above assistant carpenter, and there might be a master carpenter or a supervisor above that, right? Now, if you were to look at it from the HR perspective, and that's how we also look at it, is that we are creating job role specific training programs. So each job role would have some kind of a KRA. That to do this job properly, I need to have this kind of a KRA. For this discharging this KRA, I need to have a knowledge unit. I have to have a competency. I need to have skill sets that I need to possess to be able to perform or discharge that particular job role requirement that is there. Now, that is what a qualification means. And when we say approval of the qualification, it means that all these kind of different job role specific qualifications that are created, those qualifications are put forward to NCVT for approval, and they approve these qualifications for further implementation in training, in upskilling, in reskilling, in recognition of prior learning, and different kind of programs that are there. So that's why we are a recognized awarding body by NCVT for this particular sector.
Very recently, you have developed qualifications for the job roles of multi-purpose assistant furniture business development level 3, assistant panel works machine operator with specialization level 4, and panel works machine operator with specialization level 4.5. You are also seeking validation from your members before forwarding the qualifications to NCVT. Could you explain this process of designing the job roles and the qualifications and the validation?
Let me talk about the process first. How are these qualifications developed? Now, first of all, like I mentioned, the mandate of a sector skill council or as an awarding body for us is to understand the industry. Now, how do we understand the industry? When you're trying to develop something or something like a national occupation standard, you first of all read the industry, you understand the industry, and you map it in terms of what all occupations are there in the industry. I'll take a simple example here of, let's say, to explain it in a better way, of an organization structure. Now, let's say there's a company, there are different departments, and different departments have different types of job roles in it, right? These departments essentially are also a representation of different occupations that are there. Now, these different job roles have different JDs, and these different JDs require appropriately, people to be hired appropriately, right? Now, let's use this same example to say we are doing this exercise for the whole industry now. So when we understand the whole industry, we say that instead of an organization structure, we are creating an occupational map, which identifies all the occupations in that particular industry, which also lists down all the job roles that fall under each occupation. Now, these occupations, when you're putting these job roles we are putting in these occupations, you saw one thing which was mentioned in your question was a level, right? Now, what are these levels? This mapping of these levels is being done from level 1 to level 8 as per a framework which is called National Skills Qualification Framework. Now, what is this framework? This framework essentially says that at level 1, I have a given set of knowledge, competency, professional expertise, etc., and that keeps on increasing as I go higher up the level. So like that, these levels graduate from 1 to 8 based on these competencies and other things like that, right? Now, when we've done this kind of an occupation mapping, we have identified these different job roles. We do a demand supply analysis, skill gap analysis. We put together a team of experts under a group which is called National Occupation Standard Group. And this National Occupation Standard Group is specific to a different type of occupation that we're talking about. So let's say that occupation is interior design, or that occupation is machine operations, or that occupation involves woodworking. So we put together a group of industry experts from India, from across, and we set what all is required to be done for that particular job role or for that particular. So building that qualification, that is what is happening. After that is done, as per the mandates of NCVT, it is important that this draft qualification in the particular format is being sent to industry, at least 30 industry players of different types, small, medium, micro, large, to help them validate the what has been developed and tell them in very simple words, answer the question that if somebody is trained as per this qualification and tomorrow you have a requirement, would you be willing to hire that person because he's trained as per this particular requirement for the particular job role? So when we ask for validation, I rather put it very simply, but essentially we are asking the industry that this kind of a training program is going to be developed. This is going to be the model curriculum. This is going to be the structure. Would you be willing to take somebody who gets trained as per this? So that is why we are asking the validation for them. So once we get the validation, and it's a very strong process, strong embedded process that has been created by NCVT. We take this validation, we submit it to NCVT, then NCVT does a round of stakeholder validation. They ask, there's a questioning, question answer session on that, on the requirement of that validation, of that qualification and the validation that have been received, and then they approve it for any kind of further processing. So once approved by NCVT, then it comes into mainstream of development of the content, running the training programs of different types, whether it is a program for school, for college, standalone programs, or it's a club program that goes into diploma, advanced diploma, BVOC, all of that happens after. So that's the importance of the whole process of validation, development of a qualification, and the levels that were attached with all these, all the three job roles that we mentioned. So we have essentially have three different programs at the entry level that we have developed in the recent time. One is on design designing perspective, another is on the production perspective, and the third one is on the business development perspective. Now, these three programs, along with the electives, or I would say, give an example of MBA. So MBA has options of sales, marketing, finance, etc., etc. So similarly, these programs have options of whether in designing I want to get into furniture designing, drafting, interior design drafting, or I want to get into product design drafting. So the person can do this basic program and then get into and choose a line there. He can get into a production program and have electives like woodworking, panel processing, surface finishing, upholstery. So he gets a basic gist of what all is required, gets acclimatized to that sector, and then he moves ahead in his career by doing the right apprenticeship or getting into a right job. Similarly goes for business development, because we have a lot of sales and marketing related requirement also that is mushrooming in the industry like anything because of the growth of the sector. So that's the whole idea behind what we are developing, how we are developing, and why validation.
You had mentioned that you're also helping industry players in developing their internal training programs. How can they collaborate with the furniture and fitting skill council, the industry players, to set up their internal training programs?
Very important question, actually. See, who needs it? Let's look little deeper into this thing. Who needs these kind of training programs? Now, if you look at the like a Godrej of the world, or probably a Hafele or Hetig of the world, they have already created these kind of programs. The reason being that they wanted to scale up. Now there's a whole subsector, I would say, like a middle, like we have this class segmentation, a middle class of the overall, of the industry, wherein their size is not so big that they can go all alone on themselves. They still have the more intention and motivation to do it themselves, that they want to open a training center. And the idea is not because they want to run it as a business, but the idea is that they want to solve the problem, the inherent problem that they're facing, they're battling out every day of lack of unskilled or lack of skilled workforce, availability of the skilled workforce, basically that. So that is the reason why this requirement is coming, that they want to set up something internally. They want to have a skill development ecosystem internally, or they have a training program system developed internally. Now, how is FFSC helping that? Now, FFSC essentially is trying to solve this problem not just for the top ones or the big, but it's trying to solve the problem from all the MSMEs also. So essentially, if they want to set up, let's say, maybe just a 2-day, 3-day workshop for the people, that is possible. If they want to set up, no, I want to create a training development program wherein anybody who joins me can get a proper orientation for, let's say 4 days, 5 days, those things are possible. Like I mentioned, these qualifications that are there, they're essentially based on what is required for the particular job. So these qualifications can be used to create custom programs, custom training programs or upskilling programs by these industries also. Now, essentially, this job in a very bigger setup or large setup can be done by an HR department, because they have dedicated people for working on that front. But given the nature of our industry and the availability of even HR for that matter, specific to our industry, this is something which is missing as a gap. Like the value chain is broken here. And that's what FFSC is fulfilling here. So industry can collaborate with FFSC to develop something like that using the existing qualifications. They can develop something which is more customized to their requirement. They can also, place a requirement that, and if there is enough requirement that for this particular job role, you've not really worked, please work towards that. And that's the reason why industry needs to collaborate and, put the requirement
forward. There is a view
that
employers would eventually lose their skilled workers to the competition if they invest too much in skill development. Is this assumption correct? And then, if at all it is correct, how can we overcome this? And this challenge can be overcome.
Let me draw an analogy here for an example. Let's say in India overall we have only 100 skilled workforce. Okay, there is no way that more skilled workforce is coming, but the number of industries, let's assume in this example, is 10, and now it is going to become 15. What is going to happen? There's going to be a demand supply gap. Maybe those 100 people become more valuable. More people are going to, whoever can pay the higher price is going to take, right? Until there is a supply of skilled workforce happening, this is going to happen. There is no other option about it. The Darwin's theory would work here, that the fittest or the more strongest or the person who can pay the more money would take the skilled workforce. Now, what is the solution for that? Fearing that my skilled workforce would be taken away by somebody, is that the right solution for that? I would say no, because in any case, if this is happening in the industry right now, and which is the case at this point in time, you're anyway just going to lose your skilled workforce. The only way is to collaborate, come together and create a pool like IT industry did 20 years back. Create a pool of resource, create a pool of right skill sets, right talent, right people, that you don't have to worry about, where is the 100 month coming from, 105th coming from, 120th coming from, 200th number of skilled workforce coming. So that's fear is not the solution to this thing. The only way to overcome this challenge is to collaborate, understand what is the demand, create more and more people, create more and more awareness, so that, unlike the case in IT sector, wherein the demands were in huge numbers and, all these companies were actually propagating it and we were getting a good amount of business from the West. People were recruiting in thousands at that point in time. So slowly and steadily, that kind of became a norm for every engineer that, mujhe to IT industry mein jana hai. I want to get into IT. And that kind of became a marketing thing for them. Year on year, people wanted to become engineers. They wanted to get into IT companies. They wanted to get into, tech. They wanted to get into, all these Fortune 500 companies. Now, if we are not doing that, the problem is not of having competition just within our industry and losing out skilled workforce. The challenge is also that the young talent is not getting attracted to our industry. So if we don't unite, we don't collaborate, and we don't put out our industry as an aspirational industry and give the right kind of job opportunity, that we are giving a right kind of job opportunity, we'll actually come into a bigger problem. So the solution is simple: power of collaboration, creating awareness amongst the academia and learners about the job opportunities that we have a right kind of training infrastructure for those programs, have a right kind of atmosphere and working environment, for these young people who are coming into our industry. And that's what is going to solve the challenge. It's not going to be solved overnight. It is going to happen over a period of time. You can see that example now, in tech companies, IT engineering, that now from a time wherein there was shortage of engineers to now a time when we say unemployed engineer or unemployed degree holder or unemployed MBA for that matter. So we have to work on this thing, because here we are giving something which is much required in the industry, much required in the country: employment or entrepreneurship.
There's been a lot of talk about apprenticeship, about training. What is the significance of apprenticeship in today's milieu of human resource development? And how does the government view apprenticeship?
Apprenticeship, I would say, in all my understanding, experience, is the most important way of training. The most important. Let's take an example here. You must have heard a lot of times, even when you hire somebody who's a fresher, इसको अभी नहीं काम नहीं आता है, इसको भी 1-2 साल लगेगा, इसको थोड़ा time लगेगा, to get the learnings of what the industry wants. Or, even somebody who's taken on board, you say, college में पढ़ के नहीं आया है, इसको college में जो सिखाया बराबर नहीं है. And still a lot of impetus people are saying that first 2 years of experience, or, to substantiate the same thing, people like to take people who have got 2-3 years of experience. Well, at least industry is already understanding over here. Why is that? What has happened in that 1 or 2 year period? In that 1 or 2 year period, people have worked on the job. And what is apprenticeship? What apprenticeship is that only? Apprenticeship is learning on the job. It is like you are learning on the job, acquiring skill sets, knowledge, and other things on the job. So apprenticeship is a very, very important way of training in the ecosystem. There are live examples, running examples from, from not just decades, from, more than 50 years in Germany, in other parts of the Europe, wherein apprenticeship is the way to go. The programs are so, so famous that other countries have also adopted for that part. Now let's look at it from a different angle. Are we not doing apprenticeship already as a country or as a sector? Let's not go to a country. Let's talk about just sector. How did a carpenter get trained? A carpenter got trained by his father or by his, uncle, by his grandfather on the job. There was no school. He was getting trained there. How did a young designer or a draftsperson learn more about a particular thing? He learned on the job, because there was no institute there. So essentially, the companies are right now also following an apprenticeship system. It's just that they call it a job and they're paying that much amount of salary during that particular first 1 or 2 year of period. Now look at the same thing from a different industry perspective. Let's take an example of CA, chartered accountancy. Now, chartered accountants have to do compulsorily an articleship after the 2 levels they complete. Why is that? They cannot appear for the final exam because in that period they are practically working for a CA, and then they appear for a final exam and they say, okay, fine, now this person is a CA. Look at another example. Doctors, we say, we don't say, भाई इसका 5 साल का MBBS हो गया, अभी इसके साथ में अपनी नर्स दिखा देते हैं और उसको इलाज करा देते हैं. We still say practicing. वो MD करेगा, तभी वो मेडिकल कॉलेज के अंदर में वहाँ प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं. Why? Because they're still learning on the job. So apprenticeship, especially for the trades, and now let's come to our industry again back. It is very important because the kind of cost that goes into training for our job roles is humongous. Now imagine training somebody on a machine operation role. You would be required, let's take example of a simple example of a panel saw. Even to set up a panel saw, you would require at least 5 lakh, 7 lakh rupees of investment. Then you'll have to put in that much amount of raw material into it, panels, timber, etc., etc. Now, would you be able to do that for a 2 months, 3 months kind of a training program and get a good, training fee also? No, that's not possible. And would you be able to make all the types of different types of products in just that small short-term program? Or let's say, even if it's a long-term program of 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, imagine the amount of investment that would go into it. Who would be able to pay for that, especially now when that job role is not aspirational or that sector is not aspirational? In that case also, apprenticeship becomes very important, that the person gets that basic orientation, understanding, training, and works on the job for next 6 months to 9 months to 12 months to even more than time, get the right skill set, get the apprenticeship certification, and works in the industry in that. So it's not something which is, I would say, एकदम नया concept कहीं से इजाद हुआ है, हम already कर रहे हैं, हम इसे formalize करते हुए करने की जरूरत है, और इसे एक larger level पे करने की जरूरत है, इसे एक organized way में promote करने की जरूरत है, कि आज बच्चा अपनी basic training लेता है, उसके बाद हम उसको बोलेंगे आप आइए, welcome है आप हमारी industry में, हमारी company में, आप apprenticeship करिए और आपको यहाँ पर job opportunity मिलेगी. And what is government's view on that? Government is very bullish on this particular thing. It is taking this as a very, very important strategy. There have been a lot of reforms in the apprenticeship. Just in this previous budget, 47 lakh students ke liye stipends ka amount was announced by our finance minister. And apprenticeship stipends are being paid, on different types of apprenticeship programs that are there. So government is taking it very, very seriously, and they also realize that this is a very important strategy if we were to train, our youth in the right manner.
With so many resources being invested into setting up of the skilling ecosystem, right up to the center of excellence, as you mentioned, has the training industry evolved into a sustainable business or an enterprise? What are the avenues for people who want to set up the business of skill development or training?
See, this would vary, and I would consider that your question is limited to our sector, so I'll stick to that. But I'll give you, a comparison of other segment also. See, when we talk about, because you use the word business of skilling, now why would somebody get into business? To make money, to make profit, or to probably solve a problem statement on a higher level. Now, wherever, and when we're talking about the spectrum of skilling, we're not just talking about skilling in interior and furniture industry. Now you can be skilling for a data entry job role, it can be skilling for an electrician job role, it can be skilling for something that doesn't require that kind of an investment, because it's a return on investment kind of a thing also when you're talking about business of skilling. So what has happened is there is a competition for the training programs or the trades that are there in our sector with those which are easy to implement. Now, if I were to get into a business of skilling, I would rather look for those trades which are easy to implement, has higher aspiration value, more demand, because it becomes easy for me to implement it and get my return on this. So, answering the first part of the question, yes, the ecosystem has evolved, and there has been sustainable enterprises also that have been developed, but they have majorly been in those states wherein the demand is high, easy to implement, or there was a backup of the industry, or the larger center of excellences were created. They were able to put the CSR money into it. So those things were there. And as far as our segment is concerned, people are now warming up to the idea. Earlier, only few companies were there who were investing into our kind of setup and doing some kind of an activities. I would like to name Pidlite as one, and because they have kind of adopted or facilitated different ITIs based carpentry units in our sector. They are also coming up with a center of excellence in Ahmedabad. Home Ag, BSA have been continuously, supplying or providing the machines for training programs. So that is happening. But considering the size of the industry and the way that we are growing, it is very very minuscule. So to say, because if on a higher side also, let's assume that we have just 1 lakh companies, and imagine that everybody has 1% requirement each. Where is that coming from? Are there enough training institutes? No, the answer is no. So while people are warming up, they're still not there into it. Now, answering the second question, second part of the question, where are the avenues for people who are interested in opening these kind of centers? Ease of engagement is something which is very attractive for anybody when they want to go into a business. So what FFSC is trying to do here is that we have categorized, or created a model wherein we say there are 3 different types of training centers: beginner academy, apprenticeship academy, and center of excellence. And we are setting guidelines, modus operandi, most like a complete process, that what you need to do when you're entering into the business of running the training center. So the only question that will remain with somebody who wants to, or who's remotely interested in this idea of, venturing into training programs into our sector, or opening a training academy, would be a question of yes, I want to do, or no, I don't want. Or maybe if you, in between somewhere. But the whole idea of what I need to do, how I need to do, how would I set up, how would I run the show, all those things, we are trying to solve the problem by creating guidelines and a template on that. So people would only have to make a choice that, okay, I want to take in this case, let me take an example. I want to take a franchisee of DPS school in probably a city like, a Kochi. And so he knows that, okay, DPS center is there. They are going to guide me in terms of how to run the school, how to train my trainers, how to train my teachers, what kind of infrastructure is required, what kind of training curriculum would be there, what would be my schedule look like, calendar look like, what kind of events I should do, etc., etc. So that is something that we're working on, and we're going to showcase a glimpse of that in during our 15th July event, which is our 8th Foundation Day. That how people can get engaged into this thing. Essentially, the Center of Excellence also that we are coming up with is to kind of give people an example of when they see it, they believe it, they know it. Okay, this is what is required to be done, and we keep on getting this kind of a requirement. Actually, there are a lot of people who are interested in opening the training centers, working towards the cause of creating skilled workforce. But that's where they get stuck, and that's what we're trying to solve, the problem of ease of engagement and how to implement it. We're trying to solve that problem for them.
The entire skilling ecosystem in the woodworking or the interiors and the furniture and woodworking industry is dependent on one big question of the desire to become a woodworker. How aspirational this profession is. How interested are people to become carpenters or woodworkers or furniture designers or
machine operators.
So what needs to be done to make this profession aspirational?
Let me answer this as an industry first of all. And first thing that is required is self-awareness as an industry. What is it, the opportunity that we are offering? We are, and even when I see a lot of people saying that, we are okay with the idea of opening a training center. It's not that they want to open a training center. They are trying to solve an internal problem that they've been battling since a long time. That is limiting their growth, first of all. That is limiting them to take the advantage of this bigger picture, which is there, that, India versus China, or India versus an opportunity of, rising above that segment. And the main reason why they're not able to do that is the lack of skilled workers. That's why they're saying that I want to solve this problem. I want to get into the business of, skilling and training. Now let's look at how would they solve it. If you were to solve a problem, you have jobs to give, you have opportunity to give. The problem is that there is lack of awareness now. Self-awareness clear kar liya, tabhi lack of awareness amongst the organized, formalized institutions that advocate a particular program, that advocate a particular kind of trade, advocate a particular kind of occupation, advocate a particular kind of profession. Academia is not aware about it. In schools, there is no awareness about it. Learners at large are not aware about it. So the second important thing would be to create awareness amongst this segment, academia and learners. Now, how would we create that? Now, if I were to create a Virat Kohli back in 1990s, I would have created an example of Kapil Dev or a Sunil Gavaskar or a Sachin Tendulkar that gave a fleet of Virat Kohlis now to Shubham Gill and other people. right? So you have to create those aspirational stories. You have to create those aspiration examples from within the industry. Now, it is a myth that our industry is only limited to woodworking or to carpentry. Imagine and look at the world of modular furniture industry. How many people do you know are actually carpenters who are running the show? Mr. Kirit from Spacewood is not a carpenter. Mr. Sani from Interwood is not a carpenter. There are so many examples like that. Maximum modular furniture industry is not really into that. And if you look at closely, modular furniture industry is essentially an engineered furniture product that you're creating components, you're assembling those components, and you're providing it to the end user as a kitchen, as a wardrobe, as a bed, right? And now look at an automobile industry. What are they doing? They are also making components. They are making a chassis. They are making a window. They are making the main body, and they're putting it together. What kind of machines are they using? They are also using CNCs. They are also using cutting machines. They are also using molding machines. They are also using bending machines. Similarly, something we are doing. The only challenge is that this understanding is lacking amongst the people who are imparting knowledge or where the counseling for different kind of career opportunities. So as an industry, first of all, we need to bring this, all the job repository that we have together, identify which is what amongst this is the Sachin Tendulkar for us, identify those Tendulkars, create examples of those Tendulkars, and there are many examples in this industry. I can just count it, my fingers, I could run out of my fingers, even run out of my pages on my book to count such success stories. We have to popularize those stories. We have to create aspiration through those stories. Through aspiration of people who build big companies out of it. Aspiration, people who build good careers working as employees also out of it. So that is what is required. And then you'll automatically see a shift happen. Another important part, and today, irrespective, unlike if it was 20 years back and we were trying to solve this problem today, and back then, is that today's youth is not biased only with, this job is for a particular sector, this is for a particular community, this is for XYZ. Today, they are all conscious about making a living. They're all conscious about having a good standard of living. You would have seen, a lot of people shifted to doing a driver's job in Ola and Uber. And a lot of those people were good engineers. They were good MBAs. They had lost their job and they were doing that. Why? Because they knew that there's an opportunity. I can earn up to 50,000 rupees, 60,000 rupees, even up to lakhs. Into that, I can have 2-3 cars. So they were looking at business opportunity. They were looking at career opportunity. And the same thing is there available in our industry today. It's just about showing them in the right way. Today, a Swiggy and a Zomato guy makes more than 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, 50,000 rupees also. Are they not willing to take that opportunity? They are willing to take that opportunity. Are they considering the name? Try no, they're not doing that. So if the opportunity is there, today's youth is sensible enough to understand and not weigh it in the Raju of, the scale of, no, this job is not for me. If they see, career in that job, they would definitely take it. And that's the beauty of living in today's time. I think so. If we are putting our message in the right way, the youth will take up, and we would not have this problem of unskilled workforce or unavailability of skilled workforce in the country. I'm a strong believer.